Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at what's changed with shiny hunting in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet since its latest update on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, aside from the huge performance upgrade Scarlet and Violet got, which is phenomenal by the way, we've also seen a huge increase in the number of wild spawns appearing throughout Paldea, Kitakami and the Blueberry Terrarium at once. Before this update on the original Switch, we'd maybe see a maximum of 15 Pokemon at any one time in the overworld. This was mainly to stop the game from basically crashing, and in turn meant the draw distance pre-update was quite small. Now, for those of you that don't know, draw distance refers to how far away objects, in this case Pokemon, can appear in the overworld. In the original Scarlet and Violet games, on the standard Nintendo Switch, Pokemon only spawned relatively close to the player. If you move too far away, they then despawn. And this limited range actually made certain shiny hunts easier since you could quickly reset spawns by just moving a short distance back and forth. However, on the Switch 2, the draw distance has been increased significantly. Pokemon now spawn much farther from your character, making the world feel more alive. And from what I've seen in game and from others sharing their experiences online, it looks like the number of wild Pokemon spawning at once has jumped to a massive 39. It's more than double of what we had before. Now, Cerebi lists a maximum number of wild spawns at one time in the update as 36. But I've definitely had occasions in-game where 39 Pokemon were on the field at once. And until we get the official confirmation of this, it's safe to say that the number sits somewhere around those high 30s. But let me know what you've seen while playing. Maybe together we can figure out a definitive number in the comments below. But what does this mean for shiny hunting in Scarlet and Violet on the Switch 2? One method that's definitely been affected by the update is the 16 method. With the increased number of spawns on the Switch 2, this method has gotten a whole lot harder. For those unfamiliar, the 16 method was mainly used for isolated spawns or mass outbreaks with hard to spot shinies. You'd spawn in your target Pokemon, count how many appeared, and if there was only 15, you knew that there wasn't a shiny there. But if there was 16, that extra one confirmed there was a shiny on the field. This method was especially helpful when hunting Pokemon like Minio, since its shiny form is hidden inside its shell and can't be seen in the overworld. Now, here's my assumption. Shiny Pokemon are spawned in addition to the regular cap. So if the new cap on the Switch 2 is 39, a shiny might actually be the 40th spawn, based on how this used to work. And honestly, counting 40 individual spawns each time just doesn't sound fun, especially in cramped areas or caves or tougher terrains. 15 was fine, but doubling that? No thanks. So for hunts that rely on this method, I'd suggest doing them on the original Switch if possible. Otherwise, we might need to just find new approaches entirely for these kind of hunts. With the increased overworld spawns, one thing that has gotten easier is setting up a Sparkling Power Level 3 sandwich and simply roaming areas to find shinies. Since you're encountering more than twice as many Pokemon now, your chances of running into a shiny have technically doubled too. To test this, I made a Sparkling Power Level 3 water type sandwich and headed to the Casaroya Lake. Within 10 minutes, I found a shiny Gyarados and a shiny Dondozo. So specifically for these areas where you know a certain type spawns in bulk, this is actually a great strategy. Just drop a Sparkling Power Level 3 sandwich and see what shows up. Moving on to isolated hunts. For the most part, isolated hunts still work as they did on the Switch 1, just with the added supercharge on spawn numbers you will see. There are a few exceptions though. For those rarer spawns in dedicated locations like Feebas, White Stripe Basculin in Kitakami, and Cyndaquil in the Blueberry Terrarium, because of the draw distance and increased spawns outside of your sight, when I tested these hunts, it made them feel impossible to do, which makes me feel in these scenarios that it might be better to do these specific hunts using mass outbreaks only. Talking about mass outbreaks, most mass outbreaks now actually, to me, felt worse on the Switch 2. Generally because of the spillover of the other spawns in certain areas that limited mass outbreak Pokemon to increase on the field. Like this Vaporeon outbreak in the Bamboo Forest. Even when I tried to knock everything that wasn't a Vaporeon out to hopefully spawn more in, I wasn't able to get more than 8 on the field at one time. I tried this outbreak in other locations, and although I was able to get more of the outbreak on the field at once, still had the complications of other species feeling like they just limited the spawns appearing. I had more success with the Torkoal outbreak in the Blueberry Terrarium, and although the spawn numbers were generally better than on the original Switch, it still felt like the surrounding spawns of other species limited what I was hunting. So my takeaway is mass outbreaks are still good, but I feel like they could be better, and the spillover of additional spawns kind of makes them feel a lot worse than they generally were before. Earlier in the video, I talked about Feebas. Well, I managed to find one of those rarer mass outbreaks for Feebas in Kitakami, so I went ahead and tested it, and I'm a little sad to say it turns out that it's a bit of a bust. I failed to spawn more than one Feebas at a time using the old method and could only get large numbers of Barboach appearing even with the outbreak, which makes me think unless there is a new method discovered to hunt this in the wild, shiny Feebas might be one of the first casualties of this Switch 2 update. Let me know though if you've tried the Feebas outbreak on your Switch 2 since launch and you've had success with it. I'd love to hear what you did differently to everything I tried in the video. Now on a plus though, the Cyndaquil outbreak did prove to be a lot better than it was on the Switch 1. After eventually finding the rare outbreak for Cyndaquil in the Blueberry Terrarium, positioned myself at the cave entrance after setting up a Sparkling Power level 3 sandwich for fire-type Pokemon, which did seem to get a good number of Cyndaquil spawning in, which was really difficult in the past. Most of the time I was hitting around 20 plus Cyndaquil spawns, which made this quite a quick hunt. The only drawback was that to reset the spawns, I had to go into the cave, head up to the back wall onto one of the ledges, set up a picnic to despawn everything in the field, and then come back to the entrance of the cave to start the process all over again. But aside from this, definitely a plus and an upgrade from the Switch 1 version of this hunt. And also a quick note about outbreaks. With the Switch 2 using the date exploit, where you go into your home menu, into system settings, and then into date and time, it's so much quicker on the Switch 2 than it ever was on the Switch 1, which makes finding those rarer spawns for mass outbreaks a lot easier. And also using an encounter power sandwich for the type of Pokemon from the outbreak you want to hunt still seems to increase the likelihood of those populating on the map more than anything else. Now getting back to isolated hunts, I did a little more testing of some popular hunts on the Switch 1 and can confirm that the Sableye, Bagon, or Larvitar hull still works in the cave in the East Province Area 3. The only thing I noticed with this hunt again was the impact the extra draw distance had. You can position yourself as you did using the original method, and the Pokemon do pour out the wall as they previously did, but the one thing I noticed is they do spawn much deeper into the cave system. So for this hunt, I would definitely recommend kind of repositioning yourself so you can see further up the cave, and then using the zoom function that's available on the Switch to spot shinies that might spawn in further away from the normal spot that we kind of looked at on the Switch 1. Another positive I found with this update was an isolated hunt for Poliwag and Poliwhirl. In Kitakami, in the Fellhorn Gorge area, there is a cave where you can find both Poliwag and Poliwhirl. Before the update to the Switch 2 with the Sparkling Power level 3 sandwich active, you get a very small amount of Poliwag and Poliwhirl spawning in. But now post-update on the Switch 2, this is actually a genuine method to get these Pokemon in their shiny forms. The amount of Poliwag and Poliwhirl that was spawning in this cave system on the Switch 2 using this method was actually like comparing night to day. This hunt felt like an easy way to actually go out and get yourself these Generation 1 Pokemon in their shiny forms, whereas before it felt very, very difficult to do the same thing. Now, outside of these other isolated hunts, I spent a lot of time in Area 0, which I feel is probably one of the easiest areas to shiny hunt in due to the sheer amount of spawns you can encounter and isolate here. Like before the update, you can still set up a sandwich at the 0 gate and then travel inside to find spawns like you've never seen before. I tested Fluttermane, Brute Bonnet, and was actually blown away with how many encounters just traveling through this area you'll see. I even came across a situation where I found 2 Brute Bonnet shinies in really close proximity to each other, which I've never had happen before in Area 0. So it makes sense that this will continue to happen because of the amount of spawns, But it's not just the Paradox Pokemon that you can hunt. Even on the outside areas, you can still isolate hunts for non-Paradox Pokemon, just like we did on the Switch 1. This time around on the Switch 2, when you do the same thing, you're just going to have way more encounters, meaning the likelihood of coming across a shiny is going to be, obviously, in hand, a lot easier to find. Also, while we're talking about Area 0, the popular shiny hunting spot on the top of the crystal in the lower areas of Area 0 still works as a great shiny hunting location. The only drawback now is that you will actually need the flying function from the DLC to take full advantage of this. Due to the draw distance, again, just going from one side of the crystal to the other does not despawn the Pokemon that have appeared on the top of the rock face. And as you can see in these clips here, you're going to need to fly a good distance away before everything on top of this rock does despawn, for you then to be able to turn around and have everything spawn back in to do the shiny hunt more effectively. So there is a drawback to this update in Area 0, but there are a lot of positives as well. Now, the town method. I did the town method just outside of Cortondo, setting up a Sparkling Power level 3 sandwich for electric types to see if there was anything different with the Mareep hunt that you can do here. This was actually another case of the draw distance having a big impact on how this hunt works. And I guess this gives a really good idea of how far Pokemon will spawn into the distance. Although the spawn numbers overall are massive in comparison to what they were like on the Switch 1, you really need to utilize the zoom function here more than any other hunt that I've kind of done so far on the Switch 2 in Scarlet and Violet. If you don't know where the zoom function is, head into your home menu and it's located in system settings, and then find the accessibility tab. And here scroll down until you see that zoom option and then just toggle it on. Once you're in the game, you can just double tap your home button on your controller and it will zoom in straight in front of you, so you get a clearer picture of what's in the distance. The one plus about this on the Switch 2 is the zoom quality on the original Switch was sometimes not the clearest of images when fully zoomed in, but on the Switch 2 it seems to be a lot better quality, which is actually really good as a utility to use alongside shiny hunts in the distance. And like before, this town method was very successful. It turned out to be a very quick hunt. I found 2 shiny Mareeps in very quick succession. So the extra spawns definitely felt like they made a difference here and give this sort of hunting where you're moving into an area to despawn everything and then moving back onto the field to respawn stuff a way easier shiny hunting method. After spending a full day in Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch 2, I really don't know how I kind of feel about this update. On one hand, it's great experience in the game with higher performance and a lot more happening in pretty much every area of Paldea and the DLCs. But there is definitely a part of me that thinks the increased spawns may be a little too high. Mass outbreaks feel a little messy in certain areas and difficult to get the numbers that you actually want for that specific Pokemon. And some outbreaks like the Feebas one seem to be almost broken now, where you're just not able to do them regardless if you've got the mass outbreak, a Sparkling Power level 3 sandwich, or anything like that set up to boost the chances of finding a shiny for that specific Pokemon. But you never know, we might find new methods to be able to hunt it. It's definitely something I am going to look a bit further into. It's just a little sad to see one of these really iconic hunts from this DLC not work any longer like it did previously. Saying that, I do love the updates to Area 0 and in particular Casaroya Lake. Finally finding the shiny red Gyarados was pretty fun and a nice throwback to those Gen 2 days. But I do wonder and feel bad for saying this, does this make shiny hunting a little too easy? And what I mean by that is it gonna go to the point where shiny Pokemon will become not as unique as they once were? That's my biggest worry. Of course, it's only early days though, so in a few weeks when we have more information on all of this, I might feel differently, but let me know what you are thinking right now about these changes to the upgrade to Scarlet and Violet on the Switch 2. And if you've enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our Pokemon content. Thank you so much for tuning in, friends. I hope you found it useful and some of the things in here informative. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you all in another video very soon. Until then, take care and